Okay, so welcome to our talk here. Thanks to Bethel Library for having me. As you know, because you signed up, we're here to talk about healthy eating on a budget. And I'll just start by saying, introducing myself. My name is Carmen Weber. I'm a registered dietitian, and I do work at RVNAhealth. As I just said, I've been a dietitian for a long time, but I'm newer to RVNA Health, so I'm happy to be there. And I'd like to just tell you a little bit about what our time is going to be like. So as you can see, I do have a PowerPoint presentation, but I like to kind of think of it as fairly informal. So I will have time at the end for questions and answers. But, if we're going and you have a question along the way, you can feel free to raise your hand and I'll see if I can address that. A couple other things, there is some information in the back. So there will be a little handout that will kind of recap some of the things I'm going to mention. So you're welcome to take that. I do have a couple recipes too, and just some information about how you can contact me if you wanted to have some one-on-one counseling. So we are talking about healthy eating on a budget. So find my tools here. I go this way. All right. Nope. Here we go. All right. Bear with me for 1 second. All right, so today we are going to talk about what's behind those higher prices. So obviously there's, some things are going on. Hopefully understand a little bit about what healthy eating is and why it matters. So we're talking about healthy eating on a budget. We're not just talking about eating on a budget, eating anything we can for the cheap. We're talking about how we can eat healthfully, nourish our bodies properly, but do it affordably. So understand what healthy eating is, what that means, and why it matters. And then we'll talk about some strategies for how to spend a little bit less while still doing, getting the good stuff. And then hopefully you're going to leave with some affordable, healthy tips, ideas for, how to do it, how to eat right. So first of all, what is happening with the cost of groceries? So prices have been really high. And according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, in 2022, I think we saw the highest rate of increase of grocery prices since 1979. So it's about 45 years. So huge increase. And a lot of things are going on. So obviously COVID played a role. Everybody was home. All of a sudden we're all cooking and like buying groceries. And so, demand for groceries is a little bit higher. I probably might remember when things were hard to find, things were off the shelf. So when demand is higher and supply is lower, the price goes up. There was a lot of other factors obviously involved with that too, but COVID certainly kicked off some high prices. But then there's global events, right? Like the war in the Ukraine, things of that nature. If we have import-export situations going on in areas of the world that are, having some struggles or some things that are affecting maybe what we are able to get, that can impact things as well. Also natural disasters, a drought. My stepfather's a farmer in Kansas, and so I'm very aware of the weather out there. And so, if we have a drought and there's no crops or the crops are really low, again, when supply is low, the price goes up. So, that's affecting things or can affect things. And the disease, not necessarily human disease, but livestock, poultry, things like that. And we saw that a couple years back with the price of eggs, they went up, and it just happened again recently, right? So avian flu affecting poultry and egg prices. So there's a lot of reasons. And even when things start to kind of correct themselves, like, okay, maybe 1 year there's a drought, the next year there's enough rain, it still takes time for, the price adjustments to actually hit us in the stores. So prices are a little bit high and there's a lot of reasons. And so what do we do about that? And I'm sure you all have done some different things, but we're going to talk about those in a minute. So like I said, we're talking about healthy eating on a budget, not just eating, but healthy eating. So what is healthy eating? And I could talk all day and night about what healthy eating is, but we're going to keep it a little bit brief. But basically, unprocessed, plant-focused foods, as close to we can get as nature, less manufactured, manipulated, things like that. And we want to make sure that we are including all the nutrients in all the food groups. So have you guys seen this before? This is my plate. shows us, the 5 different food groups and how much to have of each of those to eat healthily. But I show it to you just to mention the 5 food groups. So when we're talking about eating healthily, we don't want to exclude any food groups. We want to include fruits and vegetables and grains and protein and dairy. And we'll talk about more about what's in each of those. But we also want to make sure that we're getting all of the nutrients. So carbohydrates, protein, fat, we've all heard of those, right? So those are the big ones that are going to give us the calories and the energy that we need. And those are important. But we also want to make sure that we're getting vitamins and minerals. And then the last one is water. And I think sometimes it's kind of that forgotten nutrient, but it's so critical to us, depending on where you look, our body is either 60, 70% water, for all of our cells and a lot of different reasons. So I'm going to make sure that we're eating all the food groups, that we're getting all the different nutrients that we need. All right, so why does this matter? Well, I'm guessing that, you think it matters because you're here and you want to learn more about it. But why exactly is it important that we are not just eating, but that we're eating healthfully? And first of all, it can help us to either achieve or maintain a healthy weight. So if you're at a great weight already, eating healthily can help you stay there. If you need to lose a few pounds, maybe, that can be beneficial, what you choose, or if you need to gain a few pounds too. There's people on both ends. So healthy eating can help you maintain or achieve a healthy weight. It can also decrease your risk of health problems or manage existing chronic health problems. So by what we choose and what we decide to put into our mouth and how we decide to do that, we can impact decrease, we'll say, our risk of things like diabetes, heart disease, stroke, high blood pressure, maybe even Alzheimer's disease, So there's a lot of a lot of ways that we can eat to help minimize those risks. But if we're already dealing with something like that, we can help manage the symptoms, potentially delay or prevent some of the complications that can come from those. So it's important for that reason too. Also, eating right helps support our muscles. As we get older, often, we have a natural muscle loss called sarcopenia. So we want to make sure that we are maintaining our muscles as best we can. Same thing with our bones. And especially as we get older too, if we have a little stumble or a trip, if our bones are not healthy, we might be more likely to have a fracture or a break. Then we have healing time. And so we want to prevent that too. Eating well also helps boost our immunity. So our immune system is, it's that protection that we have, that whenever there's a virus or bacteria or something that's going to potentially make us sick or ill, the immune system is going to jump into effect and fight that off. So we want to keep that healthy too. And then obviously our skin, our teeth, our eyes, these are also important and definitely impacted by the choices that we make at the table or in the store. And so, for example, our eyes, cataracts or macular degeneration, these are some of the things that we start to be aware of and want to prevent as we get older. So good choices can help keep those things intact, and then also better gut health. So there's a lot of, research and information that tells us that our gut health is not just tied to actually our gut, but it impacts a lot of different parts of us, including, our brain and any number of things. So we want to keep that gut healthy. And then obviously we just want to, we want to live longer, and we don't want to just live longer. We want to feel good as we do that. So lots of reasons that it's really important that we eat healthy. But we don't want to compromise. We don't want to compromise our health or our budget. We want to, we want to be able to eat healthy and not break the bank. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we obviously eat healthy on a budget, but we're going to talk specifically about planning. Planning is really critical, what to do when we're shopping, some thoughts about prepping, and then storing our food as well. Anybody have any questions? We're good? Okay. All right, so the first thing that's really important in maximizing your dollars is planning, right? We definitely need to plan ahead. So I would suggest that you take a look at your week. What's coming up? Are you going to be home all week? Do you have, lunch with a friend one day? Is there a birthday celebration in your family that you're going to be attending? What's going on? So take a look at the week and consider how much time you're going to be eating at home, how much time you're going to be how many days you need to buy groceries for and what meals that you're going to be having. And then with that in mind, make a menu. Make a menu that kind of outlines, your breakfast, lunch, dinner, even some snacks that you're going to have through the week. Maybe if that's something you're not used to doing, it takes a little bit, to get you going, but it's really very helpful. And then when you have your kind of menu laid out, make a grocery list. So if you know what you're going to be eating, some of the things might be staples that you have in your pantry already. Certainly, canned goods or packaged goods or spices and things like that. But anything that is not something that you currently have, make your grocery list from that. And then you're going to want to look at flyers. Some people still get the flyers, the newspaper flyers, right? So those tell us sales or what the deals are. You can also look online. And so take a look at that and think about, where you're going to go and what the specials are. And maybe if there's a big deal or a big special on something, you can modify your menu, right? You were going to have pork, but you see that there's big sale on chicken. You can, make some swaps. So you can take a look at that. The other great thing to do is get the store app. And you get a lot more deals if you get the app. And if you are not comfortable with that or not really sure about it, anybody in the customer service at the store will set that right up for you, I'm sure, or maybe have, a family member or a friend. So it's pretty simple. And I actually just went into Stop and Shop last week, and they have a new kiosk right at the start of the store. I was actually checking out. I didn't even know about it. And they said, did you scan your card? And I said, no. And they walked me up there and made me scan it. So then you don't even have to clip any digital coupons. You don't have to do anything. You scan your card when you go in and all the extra digital deals you get. So I thought that was great. So depending on your store, I'm sure there's a very simple way to get some extra savings. And there's often, you can save a lot if you go for those digital coupons in addition to whatever the sale prices are. So, so that's important too. Consider swaps if things are on sale. I just said that. So, if you were planning one particular thing, but you see a special on something else, maybe swap the protein out or swap your veggie or something. And then plan where you're going to shop. Think about where you're going to go, right? So maybe you go to like a regular Big Y or Stop and Shop or something. Maybe you go to a big box retailer. That's something like BJ's or Costco or maybe even Walmart. I don't know. They have canned goods and, shelf stable items. Actually, some Walmarts have whole grocery stores too. Definitely in the Midwest, they do. But farmers markets are another great place to consider, especially, in the summer. You can get a lot of seasonal, great prices, great fresh things that maybe are a little bit fresher in the store. And plus you're supporting the local farmer. So that's always good too. All right. So I mentioned a menu, right? So just as an example, this is an older version. I'm not sure what happened, but anyway, so as an example, so I'm going to say that on Saturday night, I'm going to, go out to dinner, but the rest of the week, I'm going to be home. So we don't have to go through every one of these things, but just to give you an example of how easy it is if you kind of map it out. So, and if you notice on here, I picked some relatively inexpensive items. Oatmeal is fantastic. It's soluble fiber. It's a whole grain. There's a lot of benefit to it. Very inexpensive, So just a kind of an example of how you could map out, what you're going to be having. So I'm going to have a little eggs. I can afford those now. They're coming down. A couple of mornings, I'm going to have some oatmeal, some toast. You'll see on here some tuna. Tuna is a great protein source, very inexpensive, shelf stable. Don't have to worry about something going bad. Same thing with peanut butter. Again, good protein source. It's like a nice plant protein. There's beans on here a couple of times. So, think about the things that you like. Think about when you're going to be around. Think about, what's on sale and the cost of things, et cetera, and map out your week. Anybody have questions on the menu? No. So just as an example. So then you need to go shopping, right? So with your menu, make a list. Go through it and you pull off the things that you don't normally have. So if you always have tuna in your cabinet and you always have oatmeal and you always have beans or whatever, what do you need? Maybe you want to get a couple fresh oranges. Maybe you want to get some bananas. You go through and pick out the things that you don't already have and you make a list based on what you're planning to have. And less prepared items is good too. So, we pay for convenience We pay for that extra work that somebody did for us. So consider doing more of the work yourself by buying items that are less prepared. Sale items and store brands. So sale items are good. And again, if you have, the extra coupons and stuff, you're going to get a lot better prices. But store brands too, I think store brands are sometimes undervalued maybe or underestimated. So a lot of times the store brand is essentially the exact same thing as the name brand. But the difference can be vast in the price. And I use Cheerios as an example, and I love Cheerios, and I'm not saying anything bad about Cheerios. But Cheerios is a whole grain circle oat, right? And there are other very similar cereals that are essentially the same thing, same ingredients, same nutrition benefits, but Cheerios advertises, right? We know that they're good for our heart and they're lower our cholesterol, right? We see a lot of that branding. But the store brand is often a very comparable product, but they don't have all that marketing cost built in. So I always encourage, people to check out the store brands. I mean, I'm very loyal to the people in my life and my friends and my family, but I'm not necessarily super loyal to the brands. So, that's another thing to keep in mind. People also often ask about organic, right? So organic products can cost more, but do we need it to be organic? Maybe, maybe not. It depends. So has anybody ever heard of the Dirty Dozen? Okay. How about the Clean 15? No. Okay. So some products, basically talking about produce here, use a lot of pesticide and a lot of chemicals and things like that, more so than others. So for anybody who hasn't heard of the Dirty Dozen, it's a dozen different fruits, vegetables that are known to have a lot of pesticide usage. So some of those would be like strawberries. I don't remember all of them off the top of my head, but easy to find. So you think about a strawberry, it's very fragile. You don't peel it, you don't really scrub it hard and clean it. So whatever's on there, you're more likely to, to be consuming. But then there's the Clean 15. Clean 15 are 15 pieces of produce that are typically don't have that much pesticide usage or anything. So if that's something that you're, considering or concerned about, it's worth looking into. I would also say some things, if we're peeling the banana or we have a big hearty orange peel or the melon, that you're cutting off, some of those things are probably less important. So I don't think that you have to eat organic to be healthy. And I don't know that it's always really worth the price. That would be for you, I guess, to decide. But stock up when things are on sale. That's another tip. Obviously, if the price is right and you have room to store it, take advantage of that. Split with a family, friend, or neighbor. So this kind of goes along with it too. If something's on sale and you want to stock up, but you don't really need that much, or it's a better price if you get it in bulk, but you don't really need that much, maybe you have somebody that you kind of have a relationship with. This happens to me frequently. I go and I get 5-pound bag of potatoes, and they're buy one, get one. It's like, I feel like I should take it, but I don't really need another 5 pounds of potatoes. So my neighbor next door, sometimes I'll ask her hey, you want some potatoes? So you could always find a buddy where you could split things with too. Shop the perimeter of the store. Has anybody ever heard this? Shop the perimeter. So the perimeter, if you go around the outside of the store, that's where the healthiest stuff is anyway, right? So we have our produce and then, our fish counter, meat counter, dairy, frozen foods. Depending on the frozen food, there's a lot of really helpful frozen foods. So shop there first. And then in the middle, more processed, less healthy, probably higher price depending on what it is, but that's where we're finding cookies and chips and things of that nature, right? Things we don't really need anyway. We have some of those, but we should shop the perimeter first and get the good things that we need first. And then I'm sure everybody knows not to shop hungry, right? Every time I go and I'm starving, I'm like, what was I thinking? You just want everything and you don't care if it's any good for you. And so you just want to fill your buggy with all that stuff. So don't shop hungry when possible. So those are some shopping tips. Now, specifically, I wanted to just address the different food groups. So what are you looking for in each of these food groups to get a better price or, make it affordable? So fruit. So fruit can be fresh fruit. Certainly a lot of benefits of fresh fruit. Frozen fruit, Also equally nutritious. Typically it's just fresh frozen, so it doesn't have any sauce or syrup or anything like that. It's essentially the same, you know, in terms of nutrient value. Canned fruit is a possibility too. I would recommend if you get canned fruit that you get something that's not in heavy syrup, right? That's just additional added sugar that we don't need. But if it's in a fruit juice, that is like a natural fruit juice, that's okay. But also consider what's in season, right? You're always going to get a better price when something's in season. And in the summer, like July, when blueberries are buy one, get one and all that kind of stuff, take advantage of those. And if you can't, and this is another example, if you can't eat it all at one time, many things can be frozen. Blueberries, you could just kind of don't wash them first, any of those berries, roll them out on a cookie sheet and throw them in the freezer. And then once they're frozen, bag them up and then you got them, you know, so bag them for, you know, the rest of the year. You can use them later in smoothies or pancakes or whatever you like. So, so definitely take a look at, you know, what's in season and take advantage of those. The other thing that's kind of nice sometimes about frozen fruit is when we buy fresh fruit, sometimes we have waste, right? If we don't eat it all. And as far as I'm concerned, wasted food is just throwing money away, right? So another great thing, tip is to throw less away. And so one way you can do that if you, depending on if you have a small household or you don't eat that much, frozen is an option because you just take out what you need and don't really have that waste. Same thing for vegetables in a lot of ways. Fresh vegetables are wonderful, cooked a lot of different ways, but frozen also. Same thing. If it's not in a gravy or a cheese sauce or something, if it's just fresh, you know, frozen peas or frozen green beans or something, it's essentially the same from a nutritional perspective. Now, canned goods, sometimes canned goods are on sale too, right? So you can get a, I don't know, 50% canned good, or 50-cent canned good or some sale like that, or 88 cents or something. So sometimes it's nice to have some of that stuff. It's shelf stable. It stays in your pantry. It's there when you need it. But canned goods can be very salty. You can have a lot of sodium in there. So I would always look for a no salt added or a low sodium. And if you can't find those, or even if it's only low sodium, always rinse them. Just put them in a colander and run some cold running water over those. Same thing with beans for sure. And then again, seasonally, you know, what's in season. And if you're shopping at a farmer's market, that's easy too. All right, so the grains. Whole grains are always going to be better for us from a nutrition perspective. They're going to have lots of vitamins. They're going to have carbohydrates to give us energy. They'll also have a little bit more protein. They will definitely have more fiber. Any fat would be like an unsaturated. That's the heart healthy fat that we want. So make your grains whole grains if you can. So a brown rice over a white rice, or a whole grain bread over a white bread, or even a whole grain pasta, you know, anything like that. But this is a place too where you can get generics. It's pretty easy to get a generic cracker or a generic, you know, cereal or something like that. So I would just go back to, you know, taking a look at where the deals are and maybe choosing the store brand. So protein also critically important. It's a component of every cell in our body. We need it not only for our muscles, but for any number of things. But protein, when I say protein, what do you think of typically? Eggs or meat, right? So we typically, a lot of people go right to the animal proteins, and that is true. And those are great sources of protein. But in terms of like saving a little money, plant proteins are usually a little bit more affordable. So chicken, beef, fish, turkey, all those are great. But you could also just use a little more plant protein. So beans. Nuts are sometimes a little pricey, seeds, but beans are certainly a very good and affordable plant protein. Now, when we're talking about meats, you know, we eat meat. Think about the cut that you're buying. Think about how let's say prepared or how trimmed up it is. So for instance, you know, it's easy to get the boneless, skinless chicken breast, but to get the whole chicken, you do a little bit more work, you cut it down, you're going to save yourself a lot of money. Per pound, it's going to be a lot less. So the more sort of ready to cook it is, the more you'll pay. So consider if you are able to do a little bit more of the work yourself at home to get a better price. And then dairy. So dairy, you know, obviously dairy is milk, cheese, yogurt, things like that. great source of calcium. We really need that. Vitamin D, also a great protein source. But you know, the only tip here really is only buy what you need so that you're not wasting it. Any questions, any thoughts? Anybody have any other ideas, anything that they look at or do? Yeah. Yeah. That is a really good question. So, yes and no. I mean, so animal proteins are usually complete proteins. So there are 9 essential amino acids that we need. Meat typically has all of them. Okay. So, and just to give you an example, a serving, say, of 4 ounces of chicken breast would maybe have about, and that's, you know, about the size of a deck of cards or something, would maybe have about 24 grams of protein. Beans, or plant proteins, I should say, are typically not complete proteins. They have some of the amino acids, but not all. So for people who are vegetarian, who don't eat any meat, you can still get all your protein needs met, but you need to make sure that you're having a variety of different plant proteins so that you can, you know, get all of the different amino acids. And as an example too, like a half a cup of beans, and they're all a little bit different, but similar. Black beans, garbanzo beans, kidney beans, whatever. A half a cup of a bean might have maybe 6 to 8 grams of protein, and that's a serving. So it's less protein, and it's not a complete protein, but it's certainly a good viable option. And if you're combining it with other things, you're able to. But that was a great question. Did that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. All right. So then we've shopped, we've planned, we have our menu, we shopped. Now we need to start doing some prep. So where are we going to save any money in the prep? So we kind of talked about this a little bit already, but doing more of the prep yourself is going to make it cheaper for you. So if you consider in the produce department, if you get a bag of broccoli florets, and all you're going to do is throw the bag in the microwave and they're ready to go, you're going to be paying more than if you get a head of broccoli and you go home and you chop it and things like that. So just doing some of that prep work, you know, we pay for the convenience of having it ready to go. So any of the prep work you can do is good. And then again, when we throw things away, when we throw food away, we're really throwing money away. So use more than you throw away. And just I mentioned broccoli. So another example would be like if you have broccoli, a lot of times people will just throw the stems away. But there's a lot of nutrition in those, right? So you can give them a light peel if you want or not, but you can certainly use them in soups, stews, stir fry them, you just roast them. You know, it's a very viable part of the plant. Same thing with like the skin of potatoes. There's a lot of extra fiber and nutrition in the skin. So, you know, we can eat those. They're edible. There's no reason not to, as long as we're cleaning them. So use as much of the food that you can. I'm talking about mostly produce, but it could also be, you know, going back to like chicken, you know, if you buy a whole chicken, you know, use all the parts of it. You could even use the parts that you don't eat, the bones or something, and make a stock, you know. So just try to take advantage of really using every bit of it that makes sense. And then if you bought more than you need, freeze it for later. So you know, again, maybe you get a big pack. Sometimes those big packs of chicken breast, you know, you can get them on sale for $1.99 a pound or something when normally they're, you know, $3.99 or $4.99 a pound or whatever. Maybe you don't need that much, but you can certainly take out what you need for that week. And then, you know, freeze the rest for later. Now, in freezing, I think I'm going to say this in a minute too, but, you know, just make sure that whenever you are freezing something, that you are wrapping it properly, that it's airtight, and that you label it. Has anybody ever like went to look for something to thaw for dinner and you're like, what is this? You know, it's like, when's that from? I don't even know. Was that last Christmas? I'm not sure. So make sure that you label what it is and the date that you put it in there. And, you know, then more likely to have to throw something out. Okay, so now storing. I mean, I kind of keep saying this, but right, we throw food away, we're throwing money away. So store things properly when you get home from the store. Put things away immediately. Don't let them sit out. When freezing, I just said this too, right? Wrap it properly, package it properly so that you know what it is when you go to look for it. After you cook something, store the leftovers right away. So leftovers are wonderful, right? Have leftovers from dinner the next day for lunch or whatever. But we want to make sure that we're storing them and we're putting them in the fridge right away. So has anybody ever heard of the time temperature danger zone? Okay. So if you haven't, that's fine. So the danger zone is when our food is in 40 to 140 degrees. In that window, 40 to 140 degrees, that's when bacteria multiplies most rapidly. So we want to make sure that our food is not in that danger zone for more than 2 hours, or make sure it's less than 2 hours. So if you have dinner and you're leisurely hanging and talking to people after and the stuff's sitting out on the counter for an hour or two, and I'm assuming it's somewhere between 40 and 140 in the house or wherever, right? It's probably 70 or something degrees. The longer it sits out, the more bacteria starts to grow. And so just storing it quickly keeps it not only from, wasting, but keeps it safe. So I just mentioned that too. And then also leftovers can be repurposed, right? So maybe you had some, I don't know, maybe you had like some pork tenderloin and some rice one night or whatever, and you have some of that rice left over. Or maybe you had some roasted veggies with one of your meals and those are left over. Throw them into a soup or, maybe put it into some sort of salad. We do that in our house, whatever's kind of left over in the fridge at the end of the week. I put a bed of lettuce on and I kind of put it all in there. So think about, using it in a new way. Bananas in a smoothie, bananas are starting to go, or any of the fruit in the fridge starting to go, throw it in the blender with a little bit of yogurt or something. So just using up those leftovers so that you're not tossing stuff. Anybody have any great tips for, yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's a good question. So typically the recommendation would be it's going to cool off faster if it's shallow, right? So if we cook something in a big pot, it's going to stay hot a lot longer. Even if you and you don't want to put it in the fridge right away, as you know, because then the temperature in your fridge is going to go hot and everything else is compromised a little bit. So if you have, like cake pans or something, pour it out so that it's so it's more shallow, and just keep that time in mind. Make sure it's, I don't like to take it right up to 2 hours, but give it a chance to cool off or, something like that, and then you can store it back, in whatever way you need to. But you could even really, if you wanted to, you could kind of put it in an ice bath. If you wanted to put it like in a cake pan and then put something under it, like with ice, to pull the temperature down faster. If you are able to do that. So, but yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. All right. All right, so just other things to consider here. So especially like if we go out, everybody goes out sometimes, I would imagine, right? So when you go out to dinner, you ever get like a portion that's like twice as much as you would normally eat if you were home, right? So much food. So if you go out and you're with someone else, a great idea is just to pick the entree and split it with somebody. If you have giant piece of lasagna or a big chicken parm. I don't know why I'm thinking Italian food right now, but just cut it right in half. Order one, maybe you get a salad to share to start, and then you get one entree, and it's probably enough food. But if maybe you and your person don't want to have the same meal, another tip you could do is you could, when it comes, ask for a takeout or a doggy bag or a takeout thing, and just half it right then. Put the other half aside, and then you have lunch or dinner for tomorrow too. So just another way to kind of save a little bit there. And then you have to think about too, just, weigh, just notice my little pictures in the way, but that's okay. Weigh the cost of the food against the impact on your health. So sometimes we might be thinking, well, here's this frozen dinner, or here's this prepared meal, and this is like a really cheap price, and I could kind of get a lot out of this. But you have to think about too, is there anything in there that's going to be good for me? Is this a good protein source? Does it have any fiber? Does it have, any particular vitamins that might be important, any antioxidants, things that are going to be beneficial to me? Is there calcium in there? Is there anything I'm getting out of this that's any good? And if the answer is no, maybe it's not the best choice. The other way to think about it is, how much in here is not good for me? How much salt is in this? How much, just saturated fat that's going to, potentially clog my arteries is in here? How much added sugar is in this? So, sometimes you just got to kind of think about it like that too. I really fully believe, that's what I'm here talking about, is that you can definitely eat healthy without spending a ton of money. So just, sometimes just think about the choices there. And then the last one is making it is cheaper than taking it. So anytime we can cook at home, it's going to be less costly than if we go out, for one thing. But it's also, we have total control, right? We can control the ingredients that we're using. If we want to choose something that is no salt added, if we're making a soup and soup is notoriously salty. We make our own soup. We can use a low salt or a no salt added stock. We can add whatever vegetables we want. We can add whatever protein sources. So we have total control. And so not only is it cheaper if we make it ourselves, but it's also going to be more, better for us more often than not. Any questions about any of that? All right, so let's see. All right, so I have a little comparison here, actually. So healthy versus unhealthy. So let's take a look at some options that are good for us and what the cost might be, and maybe another alternate option and that's less healthy and what the cost of that would be. So if we have oatmeal with little nuts and raisins for breakfast, that could easily be 50 cents a portion. Doesn't really have to cost that much. Price of oatmeal might be up a little bit right now, but typically speaking, it's certainly under $1. That would be a breakfast. Now, if we went to the drive-thru at McDonald's and we got a sausage McMuffin and a biscuit, probably closer to $5. So here we have a whole grain, high fiber. In our nuts, we have, unsaturated fat, which is good, omega-3 fatty acids, which have a number of benefits for heart health and cognitive health. Raisins is a fruit. There's fiber, there's iron in those. So we can have a nice healthy breakfast versus a sausage McMuffin on a biscuit where we're going to have a lot of salt, a lot of saturated fat. We're not going to have really any fiber. I don't know what the nutrition is going to be, but it's not going to be anything that we need. We might even have a little time. So for lunch over here on our healthy side, we can have this tuna white bean salad with fruit and milk, maybe for like $3. Okay. Yes. Oh, okay. No, not really. I mean, there's, I think there's a little bit of preservation, but mostly the sodium it's interesting because the FDA has challenged the food industry to start to lessen the sodium content of food because we know collectively as a country and that we don't need that much. It's not good for us. So the FDA has challenged food manufacturers to decrease the sodium, but people are so accustomed to the high sodium and the flavor that it's going to be a long process. So I think the answer is that mostly it's what we're accustomed to. It's what people like. It's what sells. It's not like, we need a little bit of sodium, but nowhere near the amount that's in the food. So hope that answered the question. I love that someone asked a question from home. Okay. And just for anyone who's interested, the amount of sodium that is recommended, there's not an upper level. There's certainly, there is an upper level. There's not a lower level. There is an upper level. And American Heart Association and, various bodies suggest 2,300 milligrams of sodium or less per day. So if anybody's calculating or reading food labels, just to give you an idea, 2,300 milligrams or less. As a country, on average, we eat about 3,400 milligrams a day. So we're about 1,000 over where we should be. So there's a real movement to pull that down, because even people who are interested in doing better and eating less sodium, and even with your label reading and stuff, there's so much hidden sodium that we don't realize. I mean, you think about like things that we don't even typically think of as salty have salt in them, and it all adds up. So, a piece of rye bread could have, one slice of rye bread could have 230 milligrams of sodium. Quite a lot, So even those of us with good intentions could use some help from the people making the food to decrease that. Okay, so our little tuna salad over here, $3, let's say. You can go to Panera and get a broccoli cheddar soup bowl, which are pretty good actually, but super salty. Have a lot of saturated fat in there, and that's going to run you closer to $9. Okay, and then for dinner, maybe have a turkey bean veggie chili. Again, you're using canned beans, canned tomato. We're using no salt added. We're rinsing them. Ground turkey is cheaper than ground beef, so that's a lower cost protein option there. Maybe for like $3 a serving. Whereas if we went to Chipotle, and I'm not discounting any of these places, but if you get a chicken burrito bowl, let's say, again, closer to $10. So definitely you can make some healthier choices. You're going to get good nutrition in there, and you can do it for less money. I do have, if for anybody's interested, the recipe for the tuna salad, the tuna white bean salad, and the turkey bean veggie chili in the back. So on your way out, if you want to grab one, you can have those recipes. Oh, and here they are right here. I forgot they were in here. So anyway, again, this one is just using some canned beans, canned tuna, the spinach you're going to buy, parsley's optional, and just, some pantry items, really. We probably mostly always have some olive oil and some vinegar and things of that nature. And super, easy and quick to make too. Again, canned beans, canned tomatoes, the ground turkey, and then some spices. You can adjust those to your liking, but again, things that are pretty accessible, pretty inexpensive, and good for us. And then, and then I did have another slide that didn't make it, I guess, but just other options, and I'll just mention, is there's a program called SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Used to be called food stamps. It's called SNAP now. So, that's another option too. If anybody needs a little extra assistance, if you have a senior in your household, so if anybody's over 60, you do not need to meet the gross and net income limitations. You only have to fall below the net. So there's a little bit of, I don't know, forgiveness, benefit or something to that. So that can be found online. There are offices you can go to, you can call. So that's always an option as well. It's relatively easy to do. Certainly it's easy to do online. And so that would be another option. And then I know here in Bethel, there's a food pantry. I looked at it online. I don't know what the days and hours are. Most food pantries have a couple of days a week at least that you could go to. So the only requirement is that you have proof of residence. So bring in something that shows that you live in Bethel, and no questions asked. You can get some help there too. So anybody have any questions? Yes. So that's a good question too. I love the questions. So cholesterol is only found in animal products. So anytime that you are having plant products, you're not going to have any cholesterol. The funny thing about cholesterol is our body makes some, and it's also, there's a genetic component to it, I guess, or, so not everybody is very, dietary intake is not the biggest thing. So certainly we can watch what we're eating in terms of how much cholesterol we're eating. But if you have high cholesterol or you're watching your cholesterol, it's really more important to look at the saturated fat that you're eating. And so, so your question is, do you need to not eat meat? And I think you can eat meat. I think that you can just make better choices. So certainly I would not be eating bacon or sausage, even deli meat, some of those kinds of things. But choose, lean cuts of meat, could be, like the ground turkey or chicken breast, things of that nature. So really think about the cooking methods as well, cooking like baking or roasting as opposed to frying, things like that. So you can eat meat. Certainly plant proteins are good choices too, plant foods in general. And, all things in moderation, of course, but we don't, it does matter, but it doesn't matter that much, the cholesterol that's in our food. It's really, we're looking at saturated fat to help if we're looking to bring down our cholesterol levels. That answer your question? Okay, you're welcome. Okay. Anybody else? Yes. Yeah. Huh? Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's a good question. Yeah. So if you went out and you got like food at a restaurant, is that what you're saying? You don't notice the salt as much as if you made some yourself? I don't know. I'm not sure why you would notice it more. I mean, maybe I don't even know. I'm not sure how to answer that one. That's a good question. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Probably has to do with every other bit of the recipe and how they're preparing it. Because if it was the same amount of salt, it would seem like it would be the same. I don't know. That's a good question. I guess maybe I'll have to look into that one. Yeah. Do you like to cook? Okay. 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 So it's good that if you're paying attention. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it would taste more salty. Maybe you're adding more, maybe you're just adding more. Yeah. Or maybe it's the combination of the ingredients, like I said. So, yes. Yeah. Um, I don't know if there's one that's better than the other. Sea salt comes from the sea. Kosher salt is a little bit bigger, so sometimes a little less goes a little further because the crystal's usually a little bigger. I think it's preference. I don't really have there's pink Himalayan salt and there's different kinds. So yeah. Hmm. Oh, you did? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to know. I mean, because you can definitely be very healthy and feel good as a vegetarian. But again, sometimes it's just making sure that you're getting the right combination of foods so that you are getting, adequate protein and all the different vitamins and minerals. Sometimes if someone's a vegan, more than a vegetarian, but a strict vegan, B12 can be very low, and that can really make people feel terrible, really terrible, like fatigue and just a lot of issues. So, it probably really depends. We have to take a look at what exactly you were eating and what was going on. But you can eat healthily as a vegetarian, but it does, like I was mentioning about the protein in plant proteins, right? It's not a complete protein. So, you just have to be a little bit smarter and a little bit knowledgeable about how, what and how to eat to get everything that you need. So maybe we're a little depleted in some things, or maybe we're just dissatisfied without your burger. So, I mean, I definitely, for the most part, I feel like all things in moderation, depending on what your situation is. Even some things that are not perfect for you, if we're doing a good job most of the time and we're eating healthfully most of the time, everybody deserves a little treat or something. As long as we're most of the time making the good choices. So, yeah. Any more questions? I love there were a few questions. Okay. All right. Well, in the back, as I said, I was going to keep one up here and show you, but I forgot. But those two recipes, if you're interested, I'll grab one. Let me just show you what I have back there. Oh yeah, yeah, you were going to leave. I forgot. So I do have a few things, and I'll show you if you want to take one. So I do have the two recipes that I mentioned, and this great chip clip. They call it a chip clip, but I say not for your chips, maybe for your like dried fruit or something. A clip to clip whatever you want. And it's a hardy magnet too. So you have somewhere to stick it. I have a copy just of the sample menu if you are looking for any thoughts or inspiration or whatever. And then I also have this eating better on a budget. So this is just 10 tips, kind of some of them that we talked about as a little reminder of some of the things that we covered. So those are available, and there's pens. There's really nice pens from RVNAhealth. So, and then if anybody is interested in a little one-on-one personal nutrition assistance, counseling, I do that as well. And I have a flyer back there that has my contact information. So if anybody's interested, the way that works is we just do a quick phone call, find out what's going on, what you might need, and then we can set up, a one-on-one, like an hour appointment, do follow-ups if needed. So that's an option to you too. So I think that's all I have for you. Thank you for having me.